Imagine you had to compete in a marathon tomorrow. It's a hot, humid day and you're going to lose a lot of sweat during the process. Now, quick show of hands, who thinks it would be really important to replace some or all of the salt that you're going to lose in your sweat during exercise? Show of hands? Yep, majority of people. Okay. That is certainly the predominant view, and it is amongst athletes, coaches, and even scientists, and it has been since about the mid-1970s when endurance sports became mainstream and companies like Gatorade came onto the scene. But the interest in this area goes back much longer than the 1970s. If you go back to the Second World War, there was an interest in this area not for athletes, but for soldiers. And the Americans were particularly concerned about this because they were taking troops, often from a very cold environment in North America in the winter, dropping them onto a tropical island in the Pacific and getting them to fight the Japanese. So they commissioned a study, and in 1943, they took a bunch of conscientious objectors, they exposed them to a hot, humid environment for 2 months, and they varied the amount of salt in their diet, up, down, and back up again. And what they found was, firstly, the amount of salt in their urine went up and down, just with the diet, which they had expected. But what they didn't expect was that the amount of salt in their sweat did exactly the same thing. So this is the relationship you see on the left here with the red arrow. That is, the more salt in your diet, the more you should expect to lose in your sweat. But on the other hand, the modern logic suggests that we should be replacing the salt that we lose during exercise, and that's the orange arrow there. But of course, you put those two relationships together, you've got a conundrum, because if you replace that salt, all of a sudden that's going to increase the salt in your diet, and that will in further theoretically increase the amount you're going to lose in salt. So you've got this circular argument happening. So my PhD is attempting to reconcile this circular argument. We've looked at the existing science in each of these relationships, and then importantly, we've gone back and looked at what athletes are actually doing before and during endurance competitions. And we've put all of this information together. And for the first time in the world, we've designed lab-controlled studies that examine these relationships, specifically in the context of modern endurance athletes. So by the end of this year, we should have a much better idea of how this relationship works. Is it actually a circular argument at all? And importantly, how much salt should athletes have before, during, and after exercise to optimise their performance and prevent health consequences? Thank you.